Namaste, and welcome to The Explainer. Every single day we're just flooded with news. A policy change over here, a court ruling there, some big event happening somewhere else in the world, and honestly, it can feel like a whole lot of disconnected noise. Our job is to find the signal in that noise to connect the dots and show you the bigger story that's unfolding. Today, we're diving into the India brief for August 14th, so let's get right into it.
Okay, so here's our game plan for today. We've got 16 major headlines sitting right in front of us. Now, we could just read them off one by one, right? But that would be kind of like someone handing you 16 random puzzle pieces. You'd know what the pieces look like, sure, but you'd have absolutely no idea what picture they're all supposed to make. So we're going to do something a little different. We've grouped all of them into these 4 key themes you see here. We'll kick things off with the big, top-down decisions coming out of the government. Then we'll zoom right in to see how those huge plans actually touch the lives of individual people. After that, we'll pull the camera back out a bit for a snapshot of society as a whole, faith, safety, culture. And to wrap it all up, we'll look at India's big moves on the global chessboard. I promise, by the end of this, you'll see these invisible threads that connect a new mining law to a diplomatic summit, and you'll see how a bank's quiet little policy change is actually singing the same tune as a celebrity's very public legal troubles. Let's start with Chapter 1.
All right, first up, the government's new playbook. This is where we look at how the rules of the game are being completely reshaped, right from the very top. These are the kinds of decisions made in those big buildings in Delhi that can seem, well, a little abstract at first. But trust me, these are the starting points of some really seismic shifts. They create these little ripples that, sooner or later, reach every single one of us. Today, we're going to look at 2 big ones. One is all about the incredible wealth that's hidden right under our feet, and the other gets into a really fundamental question. How does the state actually see you? And how does it prove you are who you say you are?
So, let's really dig into this first story, literally and figuratively. The headline is simple. The Lok Sabha passed a new mining bill. The straight-up fact is that this new law basically cuts a bunch of red tape for companies that want to go looking for what are called critical minerals. We're talking lithium, cobalt, even gold. But the real story here, our take on it, is that this has almost nothing to do with digging up shiny rocks. This is about power. Just think about lithium and cobalt for a second. They are the absolute lifeblood of the 21st century economy. They are inside the battery of the smartphone in your pocket. They are totally essential for the electric cars we're all told are the future, and you need them for those gigantic grid-scale batteries that are going to power our cities. For years and years, India has had to import this stuff. So this move, it's a massive declaration of intent. It's about achieving technological self-reliance, or Atmanirbhar Bharat, in its most raw, elemental form. It's a huge strategic play in a global chess game where countries like China are currently controlling most of the pieces. But, and this is the real tension at the heart of the policy, what's the cost? Making mining easier can be a classic double-edged sword. We need these resources for green energy, but if it's not done carefully, mining can lead to deforestation, polluted water, and completely devastated landscapes. So the core question this law leaves us with is, how do we balance the super urgent strategic need for these minerals with the equally urgent moral need to protect our environment for our kids and grandkids? That's the very thin tightrope the nation now has to walk.
And this next story, wow, it perfectly illustrates another one of those fundamental tensions of our digital age. The government has now mandated Aadhaar-based facial recognition for its massive Poshan 2.0 nutrition scheme. The facts themselves are pretty straightforward. To get your benefits, you need a one-time Aadhaar authentication, and then, every month, you need a facial scan to prove you are, well, you. Now, the government's goal, as our take points out, is absolutely crucial. Leakage and fraud in welfare schemes are a gigantic problem, with money and resources meant for the most vulnerable people often getting stolen or lost. This tech is designed to be the silver bullet that fixes all of that. But here's the dilemma, the other side of that coin. Our take is that this very solution could create heartbreaking new barriers for the exact people it's designed to help. I want you to just picture an Anganwadi worker in some remote village with spotty 2G internet, trying desperately to get a good scan of a malnourished child's face. Or think about an elderly woman whose face has changed with age, or a manual laborer whose fingerprints are worn smooth. For them, a system that was built for digital efficiency in a nice city office becomes this impossible wall. It is the classic paradox, a top-down rule, designed with the best of intentions to create a perfect, foolproof system, runs the risk of locking out the very people who can't afford to be locked out. It forces us to ask a tough question. When does the hunt for perfect data come at the cost of just basic human compassion?
So, we've just seen 2 massive national-level decisions. One is about how the state manages the actual resources of the earth, and the other is about how it manages the identity of its own people. They both represent the system at its absolute largest scale.
But that brings us to what might be the most important question of all. How do these big rules, these grand systems, actually feel when they collide with an average person's day-to-day life? Let's zoom in from the capital to the citizen and find out.
Welcome to Section 2, the citizen and the system. You could call this the testing ground. This is where those abstract laws and corporate policies actually meet real life. We've got 3 stories that show this intersection perfectly. A super important court ruling about what your ID card really means, a fascinating battle between a huge bank and its customers, and a really high-profile case where a celebrity finds himself facing the full force of the law. This is where we see if the system bends for people or if it breaks them.
Okay, first up, we've got a legal clarification from the Bombay High Court that's so fundamental, I bet most of us have never even thought about it. What's so amazing about this ruling is the simple yet really profound distinction it makes. The court stated very clearly that having an Aadhaar card, a PAN card, or even a voter ID does not legally prove that you are a citizen of India. It only proves you are a resident. What does that mean? It means you live here, you work here, you're part of the economic system here. But citizenship is a totally separate, higher legal status. Our takeaway here is that massive difference. Resident does not equal citizen. So why does this matter so much? Well, imagine someone caught up in an immigration dispute. They might pull out their Aadhaar card as the ultimate proof of belonging, but this ruling makes it crystal clear that in the eyes of the law, that card has its limits. It was originally designed way back in 2009 to give every resident a unique ID, and the court is just holding firm to that original purpose. It's a really vital clarification on the legal power of the documents we use every single day.
Speaking of individuals bumping up against big systems, let's talk about something many of us deal with all the time: banking. Now, I want you to just picture this for a second. You have a bank account, you play by the rules. Then one morning, you wake up and you get a notification. That minimum balance you have to keep in your account? It's not just going up a little bit, it's going up by 5 times. From a sum you could probably manage to this whopping 50,000 rupees. That was the reality facing thousands of customers of a major Indian bank. Well, that was the plan anyway.
And this slide shows exactly what happened next. The bank slammed on the brakes. Hard. They did a complete U-turn, rolling back that crazy hike to a much more reasonable 15,000 rupees. And the reason? A total firestorm of public backlash. Our takeaway on this one is just perfect, a rare win for the humble citizen. And it really, really is. This is such a powerful textbook example of consumer power in the 21st century. I mean, think about it. Just a few years ago, a decision like this from a massive corporation would have been totally non-negotiable. Take it or leave it. But today, the collective voice of thousands of angry customers, all amplified through Twitter, Facebook, and WhatsApp, creates this tidal wave of bad press that a brand simply cannot afford to ignore. It's a great story that proves the system isn't always a one-way street. Sometimes, the citizens can push back and actually force the system to listen.
And for our last story in this section, we have a huge collision of celebrity, big money, and the law. The facts are these. The beloved former cricketer Suresh Raina is being questioned by the Enforcement Directorate. The whole investigation is part of a larger money laundering probe into an illegal betting app that he apparently endorsed. Now, the takeaway here is what makes this story so much bigger than just one celebrity. This could send a serious chill through the entire multi-billion rupee influencer industry in India. It opens up this massive, really uncomfortable can of worms. When a celebrity or an influencer uses their credibility to promote a product, where does their responsibility end? Are they just a face for hire? Or do they have a moral and maybe even a legal duty to check out what they're selling? This case blurs those lines dramatically. It could force a major rethink, kicking off a whole new era of due diligence, where influencers have to start thinking like investigators before they think like advertisers. This could really change the rules of the game for thousands of people whose entire livelihood depends on that little paid partnership tack. Okay, so we've gone from the government's grand playbook all the way down to the citizen's reality. Now, let's pull that camera back again to get a much wider view of society itself. This next section, faith, safety, and society, is really just a snapshot of India on one single day. And it's a total mosaic of deep devotion, high tension, and pure celebration, all happening at the exact same time.
This slide is kind of like taking a course sample of the entire country on August 14th. Let's break it down, piece by piece, and you'll see what I mean. First, up in Uttarakhand, the sacred Kedarnath Yatra, a pilgrimage of immense faith from millions of people, is put on hold because of heavy rain. The take from our source put it perfectly. Even divine journeys are subject to weather-related terms and conditions. It's such a powerful reminder that up in the Himalayas, nature always gets the final word. Then let's travel south to Karnataka. Here, we see a totally different kind of public faith. Huge protests by devotees. They're demanding action because they believe misinformation is being spread about their temple. Now, this isn't just about religion.
It's a potent mix of community identity, political grievance, and the lightning-fast spread of information, or misinformation, in the digital age. Now let's shift over to Jammu and Kashmir. The entire mood here is completely different. On the eve of Independence Day, security is on razor-sharp high alert. The landscape is just a sea of checkpoints, patrols, and palpable tension. It paints a picture not of celebration, but of deep, profound caution. We'll come back to this in a second. But at the very same time, look at Mumbai. There's a moment of pure civic joy. A brand new 7.5-kilometer sea-viewing promenade is opening up to the public. This is all about creating community spaces, giving a city that's always bustling a place to breathe, to relax, and to connect. And finally, in Delhi, the atmosphere is one of patriotic excitement. In the run-up to the very same Independence Day that brings so much tension to J&K, military and police bands are getting ready to perform at iconic public spots all over the city. It's an effort to bring the state and its citizens together through the power of music. So just step back and look at that tapestry. On one single day, you have deep devotion, angry protest, high-stakes security, civic celebration, and national pride. If you really want to understand India, this is it. It's all of these things, all at once.
And that story about the heightened security in Jammu and Kashmir had a take that was so powerful, so poignant, we felt it deserved its own space. It just perfectly captures the heartbreaking paradox of the region. Let's just read it and sit with it for a second. A heaven made by nature, a hell made by humans, all for greed. That one sentence just says it all, doesn't it? You have one of the most breathtakingly beautiful landscapes on the face of the earth, a place people literally call heaven on earth. And yet, the human element, the conflicts, the politics, the greed, has created a situation so incredibly tense that the eve of a national celebration is marked by fear and checkpoints. It frames Independence Day not just as a day of pride, but as an annual painful reminder of a deep, unresolved tragedy.
For our final section, we are zooming all the way out. We've looked inside the government, we've looked at the citizen's life, and we've looked across the very fabric of society. Now, let's look at how India is engaging with the rest of the world, because in our incredibly interconnected age, no country is an island. We'll explore some crucial partnerships, some simmering tensions, and new global tremors that are already reaching our shores.
This table lays out India's diplomatic chessboard perfectly, and you can see we're playing multiple games at the same time. Let's look at each one. First, you've got the heavyweight match with the USA. PM Modi is expected to meet President Trump to try and resolve an ongoing tariff standoff. This is not just some routine meeting. For months, their negotiators have been totally stuck. The takeaway here is blunt, but it's true. When negotiators fail, the bosses meet. This is top-level intervention to fix a major economic problem that affects businesses in both countries. Next, look at the relationship with Singapore. The whole vibe is completely different. India and Singapore are finalizing about 10 agreements in really critical, future-focused areas. We're talking tech, green energy, digital finance. The takeaway here is all about long-term strategy. Building reliable partnerships is key. This isn't crisis management. This is proactive, collaborative world building with a stable and absolutely vital partner in the region. And then there's the third front, the historic and incredibly complex relationship with Pakistan. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has issued a very strong warning over the decades-old Indus Water Treaty. This treaty, which governs the 6 rivers that flow between the two countries, has somehow held up for over 60 years, but it's under more and more strain. The takeaway here is a stark warning for the entire world. Water is now a top-tier security issue. This isn't just political posturing, it's about a fundamental resource for life and for farming, making this a deeply serious point of friction. So in a single 24-hour news cycle, India is managing a trade dispute, building a tech partnership, and navigating a water security crisis. It's a real masterclass in diplomatic multitasking.
And of course, India doesn't exist in a vacuum. The world is constantly sending these tremors our way that become local ripples here at home. Let's look at 3 examples happening right now. First, down in Brazil, they're launching a massive $5.5 billion plan to counter the very same US tariffs that India is trying to negotiate right now. This is a crucial bit of context. It shows us that the trade pressures we're feeling aren't unique to us. They are part of a much larger global pattern of shifting trade alliances. Second, over in Greece, they're battling over 100 separate, devastating wildfires, all fueled by a severe heat wave. For India, with our long coastline and our own vulnerability to extreme weather, this isn't just some distant tragedy. It's a terrifying preview of a future shaped by climate change, a crisis that respects absolutely no borders. And finally, in the tech world, something absolutely wild is happening that perfectly sets up our next story. A relatively small AI startup is making a bold, audacious play to buy Google Chrome. It's a reminder that even the biggest empires can be challenged, and the tech landscape is constantly shifting right under our feet.
Just let that number sink in for a moment. $34.5 billion. To put that into perspective for you,
That is more than the entire annual economic output of dozens of countries. And it's the size of an unsolicited, all-cash offer that an AI startup just made for a web browser.
And this slide right here brilliantly illustrates the sheer audacity and ambition of the modern tech world. So, the facts. An AI startup you might not have even heard of, Perplexity AI, has offered $34.5 billion in cash for Google's Chrome browser. Now, why on earth would they do this? Well, the timing is everything. This move comes just as Google is facing a massive antitrust lawsuit that could potentially force it to sell off parts of its empire, and that includes Chrome. The R-Take calls it a gutsy move. And you know what? That is a massive understatement. This is David, armed with a gigantic pile of venture capital cash, taking a shot at Goliath precisely at his moment of perceived vulnerability. And why do they want it? It's simple. The browser is the gateway to the internet. It's the source of an unimaginable amount of data on what we all do online, which is pure rocket fuel for training artificial intelligence. So this isn't just a business deal. It's a potential earthquake sitting right at the intersection of three huge forces: the explosive ambition of AI, the growing power of government regulators, and the strategic weakness of even the biggest tech giants on the planet.
So that brings us to our final takeaway for the day. We've covered 16 different stories: a mining bill, a nutrition scheme, a court ruling, a bank's reversal, a celebrity investigation, a pilgrimage, protests, security alerts, new public spaces, diplomatic meetings, global trade wars, climate disasters, and a massive tech bid. Man, it can feel like pure chaos, but as we've seen today, these stories are all connected. They are all part of the same complex, unfolding narrative. And the goal isn't just to know what happened, but to take that step back and understand why it all matters and how it all connects.
And that's really our goal here at The Explainer, to bring you the facts and help connect the dots, all to empower you to form your own clear understanding of the world. If you found this valuable, the absolute best way to support us is to make sure you don't miss the next one. Please hit that follow or subscribe button for The Explainer on Spotify and YouTube so you can join us every single morning at 8 a.m. And honestly, sharing this with a friend or a colleague who appreciates clarity over chaos is the greatest compliment you can possibly give us. Thank you so much for your time and your attention. We'll be back tomorrow with the next India Brief. Namaskar.